Hi, my name is Callie Rowland, and I chose a study that assesses the relationship between physical activity, cognitive decline, and the risk of dementia. This was a prospective cohort study with a mean follow-up of 27 years, which basically just means that this study started in 1985 and ended in 2013. And this study was done by the British Medical Journal, or the BMJ. The purpose was to test the hypothesis that physical activity in the middle of your life is not associated with a reduced risk of dementia, and that the preclinical phase of dementia is characterized by a decline in physical activity. There was a total of 10,308 participants in this study. 6,895 of them were men, 3,413 of them were women, and at the beginning of the study, they were between the ages of 35 and 55. They were all recruited in a 3-year period from 1985 to 1988. And then approximately every 5 years from the beginning of this study, they had a follow-up clinical exam. And so the researchers collected and analyzed data on physical activity, cognitive function, development, and different independent variables that could influence the data. Physical activity was assessed using a questionnaire that was used 7 different times over the course of the study. And the questionnaire was actually modified after the 3rd assessment, but the participants were still asked the same thing, so about the frequency, intensity, and duration of their physical activity. Cognitive function was assessed 4 times throughout the study, and it tested on 3 different parts of cognition. The first being memory, and so they used a 20-word free recall test. The second being executive function, which they used the Alice-Heim 4L or 4I test, which tested inductive reasoning, ability to identify patterns, and infer rules and principles. Lastly, phonemic and somatic fluency were tested. For phonemic, participants were asked to write down as many words that started with the letter S in 1 minute, and for somatic, participants were asked to write down as many animal names as they could in 1 minute. To obtain the data of how many participants were diagnosed with dementia, the researchers did a comprehensive tracing of 3 different electronic healthcare record databases. The first being the National Hospital Episode Statistics Database, the second being the Mental Health Service Data Set, and the third being the Mortality Register. Lastly, to avoid influence from other variables, participants were assessed on socio-demographic, socioeconomic, health behaviors, and health-related covariants, like heart disease and stroke. And so this data was used to avoid compromising the integrity of the study and allowing influence from other independent variables. Out of the 10,308 participants, there was a total of 329 dementia cases that were recorded, and the mean age of their diagnosis was at 75. So some of the factors that were found to be associated with higher risk were aging, being female, and having less than secondary education. Conclusions that were made from this data is that the researchers decided or analyzed their data and decided that there was no suggested association between physical activity at recommended levels and risk of dementia, that the trends of physical activity didn't differ in dementia and then non-dementia cases, and that physical activity levels were lower in the years leading up to the diagnosis of dementia. And they said that that suggests changes in physical activity might just be an indicator of the preclinical symptoms of dementia. One of the huge strengths of this study was the length and the amount of assessments that were done on physical and cognitive function. It allowed researchers to examine the trajectory of physical activity before the diagnosis of dementia, as well as other trends relating to physical activity and cognitive function. An important limitation that was recognized is that the researchers obtained all of the data regarding dementia cases through electronic health records, which could miss cases that were of more mild, as well as those who were undiagnosed and those who were misdiagnosed. Another limitation in this study is that they changed the physical activity questionnaire halfway through the study, which could affect or distort the trajectories of physical activities before diagnosis of dementia. But the researchers said that this is unlikely because of the way that they analyzed the data and the length of the study. So applications to the real world, I believe that this study can be used in future studies to find other risk factors leading into dementia, or other studies that are on physical activity and dementia and how they relate to each other. I think that this will also help find other precursors or other preventative measures to early onset dementia, or just dementia in general. And this is my citation for my study.